Some stories start at the end. This one begins in the ruins of a top-secret facility, a place that was meant to be completely erased from history, but some things just refuse to be buried. This is the story of Unit 731.
Okay, so picture this. It's August 1945. World War II is literally just days from being over. Soviet soldiers are pushing deep into Japanese-occupied Manchuria. And that's when they stumble across this massive, sprawling complex near the city of Harbin. We're talking 12 square kilometers, and it's still smoldering. You see, the Japanese army had spent days in a frantic rush trying to destroy it all, burn the records, demolish the buildings, anything to make sure no one would ever know what happened there. Well, they failed. What the Soviets found inside must have been so confusing and just deeply, deeply disturbing. I mean, it was obviously a laboratory, but this was on a scale they'd never seen before. They're finding surgical tools, weird glass containers, and these tables with leather straps still attached. They're finding notebooks filled with cold clinical data, where the test subjects aren't people with names, they're just numbers. And in the parts of the facility the demolition crews didn't get to in time, they found proof that this wasn't just about science. It was about survival. Deep down in the lower levels of the main building, they find a block of small concrete cells, hidden behind a huge reinforced door. And on the walls of those cells, scratched into the concrete, right about at the height a person could reach while sitting on the floor, were marks. Thousands of them. The unmistakable sign of people counting the days. This right here, this is the actual language from the official Soviet report. It is so chillingly clinical. Listen to that last part. Before the marks cease. That's it. 340 days. I mean, can you even imagine marking time on a wall for almost an entire year, trapped in a tiny concrete cell, knowing what was happening in the buildings above you? And then one day, the marks just stop. So who could possibly be responsible for a place like this? To even begin to understand Unit 731, you really have to understand the man who dreamed it all up. Meet Dr. Shiro Ishii. And you have to understand, he wasn't some kind of mad scientist out of a movie. No, he was a genuinely brilliant medical mind, a leading expert in bacteriology. But he was also completely convinced that all those international laws banning biological warfare, they were just getting in the way. He truly believed that the first nation willing to break those rules, to go there, would gain an unbeatable military edge. And he was so charming, so politically connected, that he talked the Japanese Imperial Army into giving him everything he needed to prove it. And wow, did they give him resources. Ishii basically built a self-contained city out in the remote wilderness of occupied Manchuria, far, far away from any prying eyes. At its peak, this place employed over 3,000 people. We're talking doctors, nurses, engineers, guards, the whole shebang. It had its own power plant, its own airfield. This was a massive, state-funded operation, all dedicated to a single, horrifying purpose. So you have to ask, how is this even possible? How do you get thousands of people to participate? Well, a huge part of the answer lies in dehumanization. The thousands of prisoners, mostly Chinese and Soviet civilians, prisoners of war, they were never ever referred to as people. They were called maruta. It's the Japanese word for logs. Just think about that. Logs. Raw material to be used up and then discarded. This one word was the psychological key. It's what allowed doctors and scientists to perform the absolute unthinkable as if it were just part of their daily routine. It unlocked the door to unimaginable cruelty. So what was the work they were doing here? What exactly were these 3,000 people doing with the maruta? You know, the first real hints of what Unit 731 was up to came out in 1939. There was this border conflict with the Soviets, and all of a sudden, a bizarre and completely unnatural outbreak of the plague just pops up. Soviet doctors on the ground were baffled. They noted that the way it was spreading, it just didn't match any known pattern of natural transmission. It was only after the war that the pieces were put together. Unit 731 had used the battle as cover to field test plague-infected fleas on the population. This was their first big trial run. And inside the facility? Well, the scope of the research was just staggering. I mean, they studied every pathogen you could think of with military potential. Plague, anthrax, cholera, you name it. But it went so much further than that. They did frostbite experiments, exposing prisoners' arms and legs to extreme cold, and then just studying the tissue as it died.
They put people in pressure chambers to see how much a human body could take before it literally ruptured. They would systematically bleed subjects just to find out the exact limit of human survival. And the records they kept were unbelievably precise. On one of the few documents that actually survived the fires, you can see it. It's a report on plague experiments, with all these columns for infection time and time to death. And in the margin, a researcher had written just one single word: effective. The complete and total detachment is just horrifying. But this entire world they had built, this whole system of horror, it was about to come crashing down. On August 6th, 1945, the very same day the atomic bomb fell on Hiroshima, the order came from Tokyo: destroy everything. So Ishii stands before his 3,000 staff members and he gives his final order. And it was simple, it was absolute. 1, burn the data. 2, smash the equipment. And 3, murder every single surviving prisoner. Leave no trace. He even told them that if any of them ever spoke of what happened there, he would personally hunt them and their families down and kill them. The demolition starts, but they just can't erase everything in time. And yet, this is where the story takes an even darker turn. Because Shiro Ishii himself, he was never captured by the Soviets who found his facility. No, he was captured by the Americans. And here we have what is, for me, the most shocking twist in this entire story. American military scientists, they realized really quickly what Ishii had. He was offering them a treasure trove of data from human experiments, data they could never, ever replicate ethically, data on biological weapons, on human endurance, on diseases, and to them, right at the dawn of the Cold War, with a potential bioweapons race against the Soviet Union looming, this information was considered priceless. So they made a deal. So what did that deal look like? Well, what justice demanded was pretty clear, right? Ishii and his staff should have been tried for war crimes, just like their Nazi counterparts were at Nuremberg. But the outcome? Full immunity. Not a single person from Unit 731 was ever prosecuted at the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal. Instead, the US government took their data and buried the truth in classified files for more than 50 years. So this dark chapter wasn't closed. It wasn't even resolved. It was just sealed shut. And for decades, the story of Unit 731 basically became a ghost story, a rumor that was officially denied by governments on both sides of the Pacific. The silence was just deafening. The Tokyo trials end in 1948, and there's not one mention of the unit. Shiro Ishii, the architect of it all, he dies peacefully of cancer in 1959. It took until 1997, for the Japanese government to even formally acknowledge the unit existed. And yeah, a court later said they had historical responsibility, but no compensation was ever paid to the victims' families. And because of those burned records, because of the immunity deal, we can't even agree on how many people died there. The most conservative estimates put the number around 3,000. That's based on a former lab assistant who said he personally saw that many bodies processed. But higher estimates, based on the facility's capacity over its 10 years of operation, go as high as 12,000. And officially, there is no number. The truth, it seems, was traded for data. But the place, the physical place, it's still there. Today, the ruins of the Pingfang facility have been turned into a museum. Over 1 million people visit it every single year. You can walk through the buildings they've preserved. You can see the boiler rooms where they cultured anthrax. And yes, you can go down to the lower level. And this brings us to the real, central question of Unit 731's legacy. See, this isn't a story about an unsolved mystery. We know what happened. We know who did it. The horror here isn't in what's unknown. So what if the real horror is in the knowing? What happens when a crime isn't just known, but it's documented, and yet it resolves into perfect, chilling impunity? You can go there today, you can look through the small viewing window into cell number 9, and you can see the proof for yourself. After all the decades of denial, after all the secret deals and the burned documents, something tangible is left. The counting marks are still there.